Are you looking to learn more about investing in the central Indiana real estate market? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Indy Real Estate Investing Podcast with T&H Realty, where we discuss all things related to investing in the central Indiana real estate market. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Indy Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Tallman with T&H Realty. We are a residential property management company that services the central Indiana market. It's just me again today. I'm sitting here by myself recording this all by my lonesome. The title of the podcast today is the top 11 members of your real estate dream team. If you're looking to begin investing, I think this podcast is for you. And even if you're an experienced investor, this may provide some food for thought to help you accelerate your investing career. You know, in a recent podcast, I interviewed Laura Conway. She's our attorney, and we spoke about evictions. And during that interview, I mentioned that Laura, even though she's not an employee here, is very much a part of our team. So before I get into the list, I think it makes sense for you to first do some honest evaluations of yourself, because I think before you can build the correct team, you kind of need to understand what your superpower is. The reality is that if you scale up your rental business, if you grow your inventory of homes from, let's say, 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or beyond, you will not be able to do everything yourself. And you will not, I'll repeat it again, be able to scale as quickly or successfully if you just try to do it all. So for example, you may be really skilled at rehab work or maintenance work, and you have really good technical skills. You have a good vision for what a home can look like with some work, and you have the technical ability to make that happen. Now, you may not be a licensed plumber, an electrician, but you know that you could convert a closet area on the main level to a half bath that could add a lot of value to the property and things like that. So on the other hand, you may be a deal whisperer. You may be able to review homes on the market and quickly pinpoint homes that make sense for you, that kind of are in your buy box. You know areas really well, you know numbers really well. You can make quick decisions on whether or not to make an offer. And you know, more importantly, that those decisions that you make will generally work out. They'll be good investments for you. So every skill is important. So I think it's important to be honest about what you do really well, and then seek out people to counter your weaknesses. The basis of this list, at least 10 of them, come from a guy named Brandon Turner. He wrote a book. Some of you probably read it. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. If you haven't read it, the book is called The Book on Rental Property Investing. I highly recommend it. There's a ton of real estate books out there today on the market, but this one is specifically written for the buy and hold investor, which is what we deal with mostly, people that are buying real estate to rent it long-term. So there's a lot of good stuff in here that you should read through and absorb and apply. We have a really good blog, and we'll put a link to that in the notes as well. We wrote several years ago that talks about building a dream team. The beauty of that blog is that we name names in that blog. So whether it's a insurance rep or a mortgage person, we're going to give you specific recommendations of people here that can help you locally achieve some of your goals. So let's get into the top 11 members of your real estate dream team. The first one on the list is a spouse or significant other. When I read this, I was like, yeah, that's really, really important. And when people ask me how long I've been investing, it's pretty easy for me to remember, because we started investing the year my first child was born. And in hindsight, that probably wasn't the best time to begin things. And I don't remember any specific conversations I had with my wife back then, but I know we did discuss it. I mean, she was very aware of what was going on. My wife and Scott's wife, I think, both had high degrees of trust in what we were doing. Their grandfather owned rental properties, and I remember she told me stories of when they used to drive around, her and her sister drive around, and you know, he might go collect rent or whatever, but they were very aware of what he did. So the concept wasn't foreign to her at all. But yes, you need buy-in from your spouse or significant other. It takes time. It's going to take a lot of your time, especially at the beginning when you're likely working another job. You're going to need nights and weekends to work on this. And so your spouse has to be very in tune with what your goals are. And really, the basics of it is you need to explain the why of what you're doing. This isn't something that you're doing as a hobby. It's something you're doing as a business. You want to treat it very seriously with an end game of creating wealth for you. Something else to consider here, I would definitely share successes of your business with your spouse. There's going to be some successes, there's going to be some failures, but I would really accent the successes of your business. Create a personal financial statement. It's something I really think is a valuable tool. Update it every year and then share that with your spouse. Say, look, this is why we are doing this. We're building wealth. We're going to be fine in retirement, things like that. I think it's important that you get really good buy-in and get on the same page with that spouse or significant other. The second team member is a mentor or an accountability partner. This is so important, and it's something Scott and I probably didn't do a lot of, mainly because the resources that the author here mentions really weren't available to us back then. He mentioned specifically investment clubs. And we had one back when we started investing in 2000. There was an investment club here locally, but it wasn't very good. It was a meeting that we attended a few times. It was generally a very elderly group of people who did a lot of complaining about sewer bills. And it's something that we just never found value in. Now, today it's different. We had a guest on, Dave Short, who runs an investment club here locally, and it's much better, I think. But back then, we did not have the benefit of a great investment club. He also mentioned Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets started in 2013, so we were well into our investing at that point. So we weren't able to take advantage of Bigger Pockets like a lot of new investors can. There's a ton of resources out there. So the reality is we had to learn a lot on our own. I remember reading some books, and we used other resources like our realtors and attorneys for advice on some best practices in investing, and they were helpful. But I would highly recommend seeking out people in your area that know the area well, that have had success. They may not be overly forthcoming with information if they view you as a competition, but there's plenty to go around. I think if you meet the right people, they would be more than willing to share some of the best practices and some of the lessons they learned along the way that could help you. So again, a mentor and accountability partner, I think, is a great team member to have. The third team member is a real estate agent. This is a big one. If you don't live in Indianapolis, a lot of our clients don't. I know a lot of investors that invest here don't live here. There's just no way you can know this city like someone who lives here every day. So a great realtor is imperative. I think there's three things to consider when choosing a realtor. The first one is that the realtor must have an investor mindset. Don't make the mistake and go to Google and search top real estate agents in Indianapolis, because the ones that show up likely don't routinely work with investors. So you need that realtor that knows where value is, can sniff out a good deal, and work with you on that. So make sure they understand your goals and that they understand how to make your goals happen. Okay. Second, they got to be hungry. I assume you're hungry to grow your rental portfolio. Your realtor has to be in that same mindset. You don't want a realtor that just throws you lists every day and then you have to sort through all the noise. You want a realtor that can pinpoint specific deals for you and tell you this is one that you should consider. Not pressure you, but just says, look, this is something I think checks your boxes, and I think it could be a good deal for you and can answer a lot of questions surrounding that property for you. But you want them to be hungry. You don't want them to be passive. You want them to be very proactive with you. And the third thing is they just need to be available. Again, you're going to be working outside your normal office hours, your normal working hours. You typically work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So you're going to need a realtor that is willing to work outside of those hours with you. And the good news is most realtors, just the nature of their job, they're set up to do that. If you think about when you want to buy a home to live in, your primary residence, you probably looked at that on a weekend or an evening when your realtor showed it to you. So realtors are very accommodating that way. They kind of set their lives to work when you're not. The fourth member of your dream team is a lender. And this is kind of a no-brainer. You're going to need to borrow money likely to start building your business. And having a good relationship with a lender is imperative. Again, like an agent, you need to get a killer. You need someone who's going to work hard for you, who's going to shorten that loan process because they're working hard on your file. And I do think if you can develop a relationship with a lender, you can, again, shorten that time it takes to process that loan because they're going to have so much documentation already on you. Their file is going to be full with your information. So you may have to resubmit some pay stubs or things like that, but you're not going to have to, submit a tax return every year or things, supporting documents that you might have to if you're just going in at the first time. Just a piece of advice, I would resist the temptation to continually shop interest rates and go with the shiny new rate. If you've got a good relationship with a lender that can close on time, that can do it efficiently, it is worth paying a little more. So for example, if your lender, says, I can get you a 7.5% interest rate, and you go online and you search this one-time rate of 7.25%, don't be tempted by that. I think it's important to be loyal to that. Again, not to be too distracted by the shiny new rate. I think you'll be better off in the long run. The fifth person for your real estate dream team are repair people. And this includes contractors who can do like full scale work, full scale remodeling, full scale, if you think about the flip model, if you're going in and just completely rehabbing a property, you need someone who can do that. But you also need handymen who can do simple repairs and simple punch out items. I think you need both. And today, as you probably know, those are really hard to find. Unlike lenders, I think you can't have too many good contractors in your Rolodex. And something to consider, contractors are not generally good business people. They just aren't. They're probably good at painting or carpentry or flooring or whatever it is, but they're probably not great at scheduling, communication, even invoicing. We've seen issues with that. So understand what you're getting into with this. Again, always search for great contractors. And when you find one, take care of them, pay them fairly. Don't exhaust them with them providing you quotes and then either not using them or beating them down on pricing continually. You need to keep them honest. I get that. But if you continually beat that contractor down on pricing, it's not going to bode well for your long-term relationship with them. If you can find a loyal contractor who's going to give you really quality work that you're not calling back constantly for warranty work, they can get it done on time, they are worth a premium. Let's say this contractor you find that does really good work, does it on time, they're not going to be your cheapest route out there. And the truth is, you don't want the cheapest person out there. I can promise you this. If you use a quality contractor, even though they may be more expensive, they will, at the end of the day, save you a lot of time, frustration, and likely money, because they're going to complete the work on time and allow you to start making money on the property, start getting residents in there that can provide you rent and cash flow. Scott and I have had contractors for years, like 20 plus years in some examples. I allow some of these contractors into my personal homes unescorted. My dogs know them. So if you find you can make those relationships, hang on to them for dear life. They're very important. They're hard to find. So if you can find them, pay them well, take care of them, foster that relationship, because it's a very important relationship and team member on this team you're trying to build. The sixth member of the dream team is a bookkeeper. And this is something I think a lot of investors will do themselves. Most are fine with it at small scale. And what I mean by bookkeeping is you record your rents, you record your expenses, you do like simple bank reconciliations. They keep your books. There's plenty of inexpensive software out there that your bookkeeper or you can use. And the job there is to, keep really good, accurate records so that then this bookkeeper that you or whoever you might use can deliver those books to your CPA, which is team member number 7, a CPA. I think a lot of investors feel like they can and should be able to do the tax return on their rental properties, but I would highly discourage you from it. I believe that we've used a CPA from day one. And there's some good software out there that you can do. You can, do your return if you want. But a CPA is taxed on all the new tax laws. They know the proper way to depreciate your properties. And again, look for a CPA. If you're making a decision to hire a CPA, which I highly recommend, look for a CPA with some experience doing rental property investment returns. I honestly believe a good CPA, like a lot of these team members, can pay for themselves in tax savings. Just last year, our CPA reached out to us, Scott and myself, about a state tax break that had just happened. And we went through that process. It ended up saving Scott and myself thousands and thousands of dollars. So unless you are a CPA, and I know there's plenty of investors who are CPAs, hire a CPA. I think it's well worth the money to make sure you keep yourself straight. If you ever have an audit, they're going to be on your side. There's just a lot of benefits to using a CPA. Okay, the 8th member of your dream team is an attorney. And I talked about our attorney at the top of the show. We consider her to be a major part of our team. We deal with thousands of tenants, and it always seems like something is going on where we may need to consult our attorney. We have a ton of answers here. Our group is experienced, incredibly experienced. There's a lot of knowledge within all of our heads, but there are occasions when we do need to call our attorney. We find her invaluable. We pay for her, but she's very, very versed in Indiana landlord tenant law and provides us really good advice. And it's more than just advice that you might need an attorney for. It's for lease creation and changes. Don't make the mistake of downloading a lease online and thinking you're good to go. Make sure your lease is prepared by a real estate attorney in your market. Okay, because all of our markets are a little different. So, attorneys can handle evictions. They can be complicated. So having that real estate attorney on your side can save you a lot of time and headache. Again, attorneys can be expensive. I get that. They could be the most expensive person on your team. But if you botch an eviction, which we know happens, if you fail to have a clause in your lease which could have protected you, which we have recent examples of here, of clients we've taken their lease and had to abide by it and said, wow, this is not a good lease. This is going to cost you. Again, if you make those mistakes, whether through a botched eviction or a bad clause in your lease, you're going to spend a lot more time and money fixing those mistakes than if you had it set up correctly and use the professional to do those kinds of things. Attorneys are invaluable. Hire one. The 9th team member is an insurance agent. Again, I hate to keep saying this, but this is another invaluable team member. Get an insurance broker. I think that makes the most sense. That way they can shop around different companies instead of you hiring a State Farm agent who's going to give you the State Farm rate. Hire a broker. They're going to get you State Farm rates at a whole lot more companies, so you can kind of pick and choose. We did a podcast with a broker recently, and I'll admit I learned some things. After doing this for nearly 23 years, I learned some things about insurance. Now, the point is, I don't need to be an insurance expert. I don't want to be an insurance expert. But we have someone on our team who knows the ins and outs of that. They make sure we are properly insured, that we get fair rates. So get yourself an insurance broker, make that a priority, develop that relationship again, so they're out there working hard for you. The 10th member is a property manager. Now, these guys are not important at all. I highly encourage you just to manage your properties yourself. Now, I'm just kidding. Obviously, being a property manager, I have a pretty good insight into this and the value that property managers can provide. The interesting thing about property managers, you think about it, if you hire a really good one, and that's the challenge, is hiring a really good one, they can eliminate your need to hire a lot of other team members. So for example, if you hire a property manager, you should not need to be constantly pounding the pavement for contractors, repairmen, things like that. Your property manager should have all the in-house vendors and techs and things like that to handle your day-to-day maintenance, your tenant turns, things like that. You may not need a bookkeeper because the property manager is going to produce a statement for you. You should be able to deliver right to your CPA. So the bookkeeping should be taken care of. Now, I know a lot of our investors take our statements and put them in some other software, do analysis, things like that. I get it. But generally speaking, the property manager should give you your profit, your income and expenses by property for the year. And that's what you're going to need to get to your CPA. You'll likely not going to need to hire a lawyer if you hire a property manager for your day-to-day management of your homes, like evictions, lease changes, things like that. I would, however, still make a connection with an attorney for just general things that you're going to need, like setting up an LLC. So I still think even if you hire a property manager, get the attorney so you have one on your side if you ever would need them. And some property managers like us have brokerages that can help you buy and eventually sell your property. So that eliminates the need to have that realtor on your team if you have good trust in your property management company to get you good deals to add to your portfolio. Now, I think I've been pretty vocal about this on the record many times. Not everyone should use a property manager. If you're a control freak, if you have the time, if you're local, and you enjoy the day-to-day management of your home, then you should manage it. Set yourself up right, still get a really good lease, get good contractors, things like that. You're going to have a full team if you do this. But if you have the time, if it's something you enjoy, then do it. But I think it's a fair statement to make that you will not be able to scale your business. So let's say you want to get to 100 homes. You're not going to be able to scale that business unless you hire a property management company. You're going to be too involved in the day-to-day management to go out and get deals to add to your portfolio. We had a great interview with a couple of our clients, local investors, and they spoke specifically to this, that they're still looking to add to their portfolio. The time that they needed to do showings, it just took up too much time. They could not focus on the bigger things. Now, I'll admit, Scott and I used to paint homes. We used to show homes. We used to run applications, but we don't do that any longer, obviously. And it's going to be really up to you to decide when the value of your time exceeds the cost of the service. I think that's a good way to look at it. Again, if the value of your time is more than the cost of a property manager, it is time to hire one. So how do you find the right PM? Well, it's likely going to be the most important relationship you'll enter into. I think all of them are important, but I think this one probably is the most important. So don't take this lightly. Don't just, again, pick the PM who's the cheapest. Remember my discussion about contractors and things like that. Don't just pick the cheapest PM, because you will generally get what you pay for. There's so many examples. We talked to Jake Knight, our business development manager. He'll back me up on this, where he'll say, hey, I know you and I spoke a year ago. I chose a different property management company because they were a little cheaper. But now I want to sign up with you guys because they don't have a good experience. My personal thoughts on what makes a really good property management company is a couple of traits. One, I think longevity matters. And I think staffing levels matter. There are a ton of property management companies, not just here in Central Indiana, but all over the country, that are unproven 1 to 5 person operations who are running around with their hair on fire. I'm a part of a lot of national forums for property management companies, and it's amazing some of the questions that come in there from new people. And I'm just like, you really should not be managing homes. If that's a question you're asking, you're not ready to manage homes for other people. So again, it's this 1 to 5 people operations. They're running around like crazy. And a lot of times, and we've seen some recent examples in our market, and I feel like we're going to see more, they will flame out. We've seen it a bunch. Brandon Turner, in the book that I'm using as the basis for this podcast, he wrote in all bold and in all caps, he said, a great property manager can mean the difference between success and failure for your investment. Again, all bold, all caps. He believes it. I believe that. They're a critical part of your team. This is a big decision. And it's a decision that if you get wrong can cause you a lot of headache and cost you a lot of money. So do your due diligence. Read reviews, online reviews. I think online reviews are important. Read reviews, but don't make necessary decisions off reviews. You need to talk to the PM. Don't read a review, say, wow, that's a really good review for an investor, and then make a call and say, I want to turn my property over to you. That's not the way this should work. Again, this is a really important relationship you're entering into. You need to talk to the PM, get a feel for how they operate, understand your involvement, because PMs have different levels of involvement for their clients. Don't have a 1 to 2 minute conversation with a PM, make a quick decision. Again, it's a really, really important relationship, and you need to enter into it with both eyes open. Number 11, Brandon Turner does not talk about this team member, but I added it because I think it's important, something I wanted to share with you all. So number 11, this is our called the bonus team member. That's a financial advisor. A long time ago, I signed up with a financial advisor who happened to be a neighbor of mine, and she was an awesome person. I really enjoyed having her as a neighbor, but in hindsight, she really wasn't what I needed. I'd send her money when I could, but there was no like forced saving. She never really talked to me about my overall investment strategy. She never talked about how it was performing. It was a very passive relationship. I assumed I received statements back then, but there really wasn't much discussion, and my investing just kind of floundered. I was a big investor. I liked to invest in the stock market, but I didn't have a real good plan. It just where there wasn't a lot of collaboration or discussion or anything like that. And I believe it was Scott who introduced me to a guy and that he started using. And I think our realtor at the time used him as well. This was several years ago. And I resisted using him. I had a personal relationship with this financial advisor neighbor, but I decided to take a meeting with him. And wow, it was a completely different experience. And when I decided to move forward with him, he really, really, really got to know me. And this guy today probably knows more about my finances than anyone, and probably even me. I would say for sure me. It was a big data dump, and he summarized it all, said, okay, here's all your investments. Where do he got an idea of what I wanted to do and when I wanted to retire and things like that. So he just basically said, look, if you want X, then you need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I said, okay, let's set it up. So he didn't only set it up, but he's a guy that will hold me accountable. Scott can talk to this. We get reach outs from him multiple times a year. He holds us accountable. We talked about the accountability partner earlier. This is that person. And this is the kind of trait you need in your financial advisor, someone to hold you accountable. It's like, Jeremy, you said you're going to save X a year. Here's where we are today. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So he's awesome. Again, he reaches out to me multiple times. I know where I stand, and I let him guide me, and it has really paid off. He's been a huge part in helping me achieve what my wife and I have today. Another example of that, and just recently I was presented an opportunity to invest in it's a commercial project, I believe it was in Ohio. I sent it to him, and the next day he called me and gave me his very honest opinion. And the bottom line is I wanted his opinion. I wanted him to tell me what he thought of it based on what I had in my investments. Did this make sense for me to invest in? And I only did that because I trust him. And that took time, obviously. It took results, but now I really trust the guy and I value his opinion. Another story, my son recently moved to Knoxville, and my wife and I are passively talking about purchasing a property near the Smoky Mountains and staying there part of the year, maybe, vacationing there and then using it as a short-term rental when we're not there. And you can bet if that conversation gets more serious, I'm going to consult him and get his opinion on it. So if you don't have a financial advisor, you need a person. There's plenty of companies out there, but you need a person that you can consult with that's going to be on your side, understand your goals. If you don't have one of those, get one. They'll make a huge impact in your overall financial wellness. He understands very much our real estate investments. You need to let them in on everything you have so they know the whole picture, so they can really set and hold you accountable to your goals. And he's so good. I may do a future podcast with him. Again, he's really good. I think he'd be great on the show. I may do that. So in closing, an overriding theme here: treat this like a business. Don't be afraid or too cheap to pay for great team members, whether that's a contractor, a property manager, whatever. Great team members should accelerate your progress. So think bigger picture on things like that. Another question, I can address is, when do you need to hire all these people? Well, you can make the argument that even if you have just one rental property, all these people are necessary. You can go through the list, and I can't say, yeah, that's not necessary at one property. You can make an argument that all of them are probably necessary. But as you scale your business, my guess is that you'll eventually employ every single one of them. Okay, so that's it. There's your 11 team members that should be a part of your real estate dream team. If you have others, let me know. Send me an email. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We hope everyone has picked up some information that will help them with their investing. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another podcast. In the meantime, we encourage you to share this podcast with your investing friends. Leave us a review and don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. Until next time, thanks so much for listening, and please stay invested in your investment.